All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's edition of the Daily Market Commentary. I'm your host, Chuck Fulkerson. Hope everybody's having an amazing day. It's going to be a great day as we are going to do what we do each and every day, looking at our futures markets from an educational perspective, trying to find the best opportunities. So let's just go ahead and dive in. I know yesterday we were a little bit short on time. Not too much better this morning, frankly, but I want to try to get through as many markets as possible. So let's go ahead and get started. This morning we're up 10 points, and yesterday I thought that we would get a bit of a pullback yesterday in the markets. Lo and behold, the pullback never really came to fruition. It was really just a lot of sideways price action yesterday, with not a whole lot happening. So, starting with the S&P, in looking at our ES levels yesterday, we stayed above this 37.75. Now we did come back and retouch it yesterday, but we weren't able to come below it, and so that level is still going to hold as a breakout. Matter of fact, it's actually a better opportunity for a breakout now because we were once, twice, almost three times a lady having Charlie levels. Well, you know what? It could be a Charlie level coming soon because old ceilings become new floors and old floors becomes new ceilings. So, but yeah, another inside day, Tom. I can see that setting up. I don't know how long that'll last, but it was definitely just a bleh kind of day yesterday, right? We didn't have a whole lot of movement worth considering and worth leaning on. So I don't have a whole lot more to add. I mean, obviously, when we have an all-time high, we have a potential for a breakout above an all-time high because we're inside of this range. Getting slightly lower highs, but nothing to really talk about on the hourly chart because we're still above those high with those higher lows. So by still showing those higher lows, I think that we are, we're still okay, but just like I like what you said. It's just an inside day. We got to get below 37.75 before price would drop. And even if price drops, I mean, 15 points is a nice little move, but it depends on how much risk you're taking for that 15 points because there is a decent level of demand right in here. NASDAQ yesterday came back and gave us a touch and go off of our level with no real entry. And then later in the day actually gave us our confirmation long. Now, if you took the confirmation long, 6 candles later, you were right here and told you, hey, we're probably not going anywhere, so it's probably a good idea to take that market and move it to break even, right? And so the market didn't really give us a movement off of that, although I will say that we are still looking at a better opportunity now of a breakdown below here than we were before. So not a lot of strength that I see in the markets today, but also, I'm still not ready to change our overall bullish sentimentality, right? So I'm gonna just kind of keep those two areas in line. And when I say overall bullish sentimentality, I mean on the bigger time frame, right? Our bigger time frame is giving us no reason to believe that we've got a lot of weakness in play. So, are there supply levels above me? Yeah, there are. There's a couple of supply levels up above me. I mean, you've got one right here, which is actually a pretty clean zone and a pretty clean level. If you decide, hey, I like these supply levels above me, because you got one here, and you've got one that. As we come into those levels, we are still going against the big picture trend overall. So I'm going to put them here. Just know that the probabilities are not the greatest on those, just due to the fact that it's still technically afternoon, Mr. Nick. Hope you're having a great day. Hope things are well across the pond. All right. Next, the Russell. So the Russell yesterday we looked at a potential for a breakdown. We didn't get basing immediately before the level. Remember, our immediately before the level, we would want something like these candles here, right? These candles here would be immediately before the level, and we didn't get a repeat of that. We got price moved straight down through and then popped right back up, right? We didn't get basing immediately before the level, and that's always the rub with our breakouts. Do we get basing immediately before the level, because without immediately before the level, it shows that there's a fair degree of weakness. Now, I will say that this morning, um, or that when I go to a daily chart from yesterday, this market was the only one that was on a daily chart still in the green, right? Whereas the rest of them were red yesterday. The daily chart yesterday, the Russell was still green. So showing me that I think that it's got a little bit more bullish momentum than the other markets. Whereas yesterday it looked like the cleanest breakdown setup without getting the that clear amount of basing there right before the level. It didn't follow through. Um, and so actually now, if you were to look at this, I think it makes more sense. I still like the breakdown of the Russell at this level. Same thing with the Dow. The Dow was also very similar in that we didn't get our basing. Our basing was up here, and which on this chart looks fairly close, but in reality, that's 70 points away from where our entry was. And so um, I still like it. I just like it on the right amount of basing. And remember, when I say the right amount of basing, it has to be basing immediately before the level, which would be about in this range here, right? Utilizing narrow range candles. So I want narrow range candles immediately before the level inside of an area close to that zone. Now, what about breaking up? Could the Russell break out to the upside? Because I mean, we're only up 8 points today. There's plenty of room to run. Sure. I mean, you've got the all-time high here that we could break above the all-time high here. You could even theoretically go above the Globex high. My question is, if you pop above the Globex high, does that set up a little tiny trap? Right? Is there a little itty bitty trap above the Globex high? I think there might be. I think above the Globex high today, you might have a little bitty price trap here. I don't think it's worth shorting, but I think it's enough that it might make this that could come into play as you're looking at this. All right. So I'm going to share this grid into the trade feed. All right. Next, let's move to commodities, energies, and metals. So starting with crude oil. So crude oil has rallied hard, rallied up to our area of supply, and we got a little touch and go off of that level. But certainly there's no entry on there because this would have to be a confirmation trade. Um, and so in looking at that, let's find out where's our next reversal point that makes a lot of sense. And I'm coming to this wick over wick right here. So this wick over wick right here, while not perfect, because we've already tested it once, right in through here, is still, I think, valid and could be played. You might, consider looking, down in this area at this wick over wick as one that's not been touched yet and was formed at a really good time of the day. Actually, I think that's probably a better level structurally wise. I just don't know that we're going to make it there. So that's 5169 by 5187. That's where I think makes the most sense and where I would look for an opportunity. This line here was a breakout line. We're just going to remove that at this point. So I think there's our upward move. When I look at this thing from a daily time period, I do want to point out, and I don't normally dive into the dailies too often in the DMC, but I do want to point out that we are coming into this daily area of supply way over here on the left. So I'm looking way over there on the left. Let me zoom in on that. Get rid of this, that's for sure. Looking at this daily area here of supply, where we had this rally base, very strong drop, and then the retest of that is where we're coming up to at the moment. Now, does it mean that I think that we're going to come hammering down from that level? No, but I wouldn't be surprised to see price come down a little bit further, back down to maybe 50. It wouldn't be an overly surprising move for price to come down that far, as we've had basically a parabolic move up. So keep that as very much in play for price to move down from here right back down to around 50. All right. Any questions on that one? Does that make sense to everybody? All right. Next, gold. So gold yesterday rallied into our 15-minute area of supply. And then what happened? So let's talk about it because I think this is a really, really, really good, clean picture of what happens with price action when our 6 candle rule happens, right? We had a little rally base, very strong drop, creating our zone of supply. Price came into the level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 candles later, price had gone nowhere. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Hell, 20, 21 candles later is when we finally left the zone. We didn't actually leave the zone until 22 candles later. It was actually this candle right here where we actually left the zone. So what does that tell me? Well, first of all, it tells me that we were eating through all of our orders up here. We were clearing out all of those orders, and that order inventory was going away. So my better question to you is, how do we trade it at that point? Once we know our 6 candle rule has told us it's time to get out, and this market's probably not going anywhere, right? If she ain't winked at you by 10 o'clock, she's not going to wink at you at 11. Maybe you should go to bed, right? Well, how do we play that? Very good, Liz. We wait for the breakout. Now, let me remove this supply line and let's add in our zone of breakout, our breakout line. And so here we had one, because this I'll put the top of the supply area, right? And I'm going to remove the supply areas. You can see that they line up perfectly. So we had 1 touch, 2 touches, 3 touches, and we have basing here right at the level, giving you the opportunity for a breakout, right? And so now my guess is most of us weren't looking at this last night. If you're in the evenings hours, Nick, John, Jose, some of you that are living outside of the U.S., maybe you're awake and you have the opportunity to take this trade. But even if you didn't take this trade, this is a really good picture for you to learn from, of a structure of how a 6 candle rule, which means I get out of a trade that wasn't working and it is no longer going in my favor, but it turns into another opportunity. And that's exactly what we've seen happen from here. So on our 4-hour chart, what does that mean for us? Well, it doesn't mean, by the way, that we've changed our trend. Our trend is still down. Lower swing lows and lower swing highs still prevail on our downward trend. But what it does mean is that our hourly chart is definitely saying, "Whew, I think that we are showing some weakness in the downward move." And I would not be surprised at all. We're slowing down right now at this area here. I wouldn't be surprised at all if price makes it back to this 1887 region. So if you want to try to get in on that next move higher, take a look at a breakout above here because you've got this level here, 1 touch, 2 touch. And if we break above there, then you've got price moving. Now, by the way, it won't change our downward trend. And so this is still a valid area of supply up above. All right. Natural gas. We didn't add anything to nat gas yesterday, although we've now just rallied into the supply area. Is this supply area still valid? No. And here's why. What do we call this? Right? Everybody knows what we call this. 5 a.m. UK time. That's all right, John. There's nothing wrong with that. I thought you were always up that early. All right. So that's basing before the level. That's going to be our kiss of death. So, not interested in trading the kiss of death because those are usually the levels that turn around and punch you in the throat. If for some reason it doesn't turn around and punch you in the throat, you're slacker. I love you, John. Look for price to come back down into this region here at some point. Probably not today. That seems to be a pretty far move based on what we've gone so far today. Although a lot of momentum here in nat gas. I think what we're seeing is a lot of surge in nat gas on the most recent cold snap, and I think that there's a feeling that we're going to have a pretty big draw on the inventory numbers on Thursday, and so I think we're seeing a premature run on that draw, which usually then comes on a pullback when that draw number actually comes out. Even if it's a big number, even if it's a big number that was drawn from inventory, the market may have already priced that in, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing here. I mean, hell, I think they got 5 inches of snow in Austin, Texas, for goodness sakes, or just outside of Austin. So there's snow all across the southeast. That's typically going to be a big draw for nat gas, but is the market already pricing that in? I think that's what I would say on that. Copper yesterday, we looked at copper area of demand, and we had this little area of supply up above. We did hit that demand area, but it was really a 6 candle dud. If you stayed in it, then you got an overnight run, but I just don't feel like most people are going to stay in that. You shouldn't. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 candles later, it hadn't left the zone. So while it wound up being a really nice move, it didn't wind up being a really nice move we could take advantage of. We then had this area of supply up here as a potential. And it's green, but it should be a purple line because it was a 15-minute chart. I just maybe not had drawn the 15-minute on there because it's this wick over wick here. And then that basically went nowhere as well. So I think that when I look at the 4-hour, what's my 4-hour trend telling me on copper? It's telling me meh. So I'm not going to add anything to my chart because it's not really giving me any semblance of direction that's telling me what makes the most sense to do on these positions. So let me share this grid. All right, next. Looking at our ags, looking at the ags. So looking at our ags, we have soy, corn, wheat, and bean oil. And I didn't spend too much time looking at these yesterday because I'm running out of time. I don't have too much more time today, but I don't have a whole lot to look at anyway. Soy, we looked at the 15-minute level. Price did come back and give it a touch and go off of the 15-minute level and then immediately smoked away from it the next time that it came to that area. So even if you didn't get in on this one, by coming here, it switched it to a confirmation, so it needs to go away. Yeah, they are a little patient. They can get you. So when I look at all these, and this is a good way to think about it, is I don't really have a whole lot of opportunity in either of these. I think you may have a breakdown setting up in corn as our momentum is definitely shifting. So keep an eye on that for a potential breakdown. But our 4-hour trend is definitely a slowing momentum, setup. So I just don't have a whole lot in these ags today to really comment on. Bean oil, a little bit of supply above us. So bean oil is probably the best one with that supply up here. I think is the best one. You've actually got the more recent supply there, but I think up here is probably better. All right. Share that grid. Oops. I really wish that on demand button was in a different location. I can't tell how many times I wind up pressing that on demand button by mistake. Man, it's got to be 15 or 20 times a day. Crop report. Thanks for that, Liz. Yeah, and I will tell you that's I don't really keep up with those. So, all right. Next, let's move over to our bonds and currencies. All right. So starting with the ZN, we had said yesterday that we anticipate the market coming down in the bonds, and unfortunately, it didn't come up to our area of supply to give us an opportunity, and it is coming down, and it's coming down hard. Our daily chart actually has us almost back to our March lows, as we're really seeing a strong sell-off in the bonds over the last few days. I think that when we look at this on a weekly time period, I think that we may make it down to these 132, 120 areas. So the 132 area is in play. So rallies up to supply do still make sense. The problem is we're not getting rallies up to supply to allow you to re-enter the trade, and we do not chase the trade, right? It still has to come up to a quality area for me to get in. Now, the 30-year did give us an entry. You may or may not have stayed in it based on the 6 candle rule, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 candles later, it had gone pretty much nowhere. Although we did wind up getting another, kind of move away from that position. Now, we just broke below here, so I think that if we look up a bit higher on a 15-minute, problem is it's kind of all garbage up a bit higher. That level's prevalent on a 15-minute. But none of the levels above us are clean enough for me to be willing to take anything on. Same thing on the 10-year note. The 10-year note I would look up here. But even that was already retested by this area here. So while I think it's going down, I just don't think that it gives us a good opportunity for an entry, and I'm not sure what anybody else thinks on that. So I think that makes sense that to not force it. All right, the euro. So the euro yesterday, I thought we would get a good breakdown below this level here. Now we did get a little bit of basing before the 2171, but then the 2156 we did not get the same picture. We did later, and I think it's still very much in play for a breakdown. It's just not there yet. Now we did get a retouch back to this 1.22 level, and that's where the market has kind of come down since the overnight here in the U.S. Oh no, didn't quite get it a touch. Now I will tell you, I wasn't in front of the market, so I wouldn't have looked at that anyway. But that actually was a good fill if anybody was able to get in on that one. It didn't quite touch where we drew our line. And matter of fact, even had we drawn our line more precisely and more perfectly, it would have been even a little further. So just nicked by a tick. And so I think that the breakdown level is still valid on the hourly chart, provided we get, which we don't have as of yet. I basically want a repeat of this, right? That's what we want, is a repeat of that kind of basing, or something similar to that. We're almost there. I only need one or two candles in here is enough. 2 to 3 is ideal, but I want narrow range candles in front of this level for basing. Good question, Dennis. Anywhere that I would buy bonds? Yeah, I would. Somewhere down around here on the ZB, it's right in this weekly chart area, and then on the 10-year note, it's somewhere down here around this 132 area. That's where your area of demand makes the most sense. All right, Canadian dollar. So the Canadian dollar, we identified a supply zone. Did not come back to that supply zone. I think it's still valid. I like this area here if we, retouch down below here, and that would be our next kind of area of supply. We retested this little zone overnight and have come off of that zone. Wow, lockdown till April. Whew. I don't, by the way, I don't pretend to be an economist or a genius. I just wonder, I mean, how how do small business owners survive when you're in lockdown, when a whole country locks you down? I don't know what Germany is doing in the form of stimulus to help people, but like, how do you feed your family if you own a coffee shop or a restaurant or even a refrigerator repair service? I mean, how do you? I don't know. I'm sorry about that. But anyway, just it's difficult. I feel so bad for so many people all over the world. Obviously, the ones that are sick and are dying make a heck of a lot of sense as well. But so, oh, anyway, Canadian dollar, like I said, not a whole lot of movement here. So I would look to see where does price drop down from there. Well, whether it's stopping the virus or not, it doesn't seem necessarily like it's stopping it, but the whole idea is to keep as many people safe as you can. I understand that, but um, at some point at some point you're gonna have a populace that doesn't want to do that any longer, and I'm not sure where that tipping point is. So I don't admittedly pay enough attention to European news to know exactly what the stimulus payments are and how they're keeping people alive. All right. Yeah, I agree. You got to control the flow right through the hospitals. And by the way, I'm not saying that I disagree with locking things down. I just you know I feel for it's a very difficult situation, and I have a tremendous amount of empathy for everybody who's in all of those positions. So I empathize with them. All right. Yeah, got to be a better way. Big tech. I don't know. Big tech. Hopefully, big tech doesn't pay too much attention to me. Lord knows they don't. Don't worry. We're only getting like 200 views a day on my YouTube channel, but you can share it. That might help. All right. Yeah, I think that's the thought, Liz. I just, until the vaccine makes a difference, I guess I just wonder what difference. I guess it's the old line, difference meaning. How what do you define that as, and how do they do it? And so I don't know, but this isn't the forum to have that conversation about obligating everyone to get the vaccine. We may have that conversation one day, maybe over some whiskey, and I'd rather do it over a whiskey and a fire pit if anybody wants to get together and chat. But anyway, so the New Zealand dollar, we had a breakdown line here. Price gave us a breakdown and then went nowhere. We talked about this yesterday for just a little bit. Supply still very much in play up above us. We got a little supply level, or a little breakdown level here, below 0.7158. A little double top was put in overnight on a 15-minute chart. We may actually break down before that, but I think this is still the cleanest one. Um, a little bit of a potential for a trap here with this area of demand just below that Globex low. So I would really want to make sure that you do have the basing. All right, 6B, Great British Pound. So in the pound, we looked at a potential for a breakdown below this line. We got a bit of basing for a very nice clean breakdown. And then I said yesterday, well, if you didn't get the breakdown, take a look at a retest. Well, the problem with the retest is what happened on our way to our retest? Well, here's my risk on that position. I had a basing zone just about 1-to-1 away from the retest level. So you could still have taken it, but you quickly get stopped out because the basing here before the level told us that it was the kiss of death. Oftentimes those levels get blown right through. And so that kiss of death down here turned us away from it, but this actually might work okay for a retest of that area. Ooh, 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 yay, 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 15-minute chart. Oh yeah, Tommy like Wingy. Tommy like Wingy. Name that movie. Tommy Boy. Right in here, I think is a pretty good level. 35.63 by 35.57. Good job, Dennis. I'm glad to hear that you did that. I'm glad to hear you pulled it when the basing happened. That's the purpose of the kiss of death rule, is to pull levels that don't make sense. Japanese yen, I had an alert set up on here. I still have an alert set up on here. We are creating a little bit of a wedge pattern in here. And so we'll see what happens. Remember, we don't trade the break out of the wedge. I just wanted to point out that it was there. If that causes to break out to up here, keep an eye for a potential reversal. If we break below here, then I think we could see an actual breakdown of price movement, provided that we get the basing. And then the Australian dollar, yesterday our 15-minute little level, we did get a move away. Once again, you may have been 6 candled to break even. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 candles later, it hadn't gone anywhere. So you may or may not have gotten 6 candled out on that one. Followed the rules, you probably did. what I would say is that on our 4-hour, we can clearly see that we've seen a shift in direction here, right? Lower swing low, lower swing low, lower swing high, lower swing high. So if we get below here, I think our next stopping point may be all the way down here at 0.75. I think we could really get a strong run down from here if we're unable to hold these lows. So knowing that those lows are important from a 4-hour time perspective, I'm going to look to this area of supply up above as a potential. Note, remember our basing rule. If we get basing in front of it, it won't be. But we're at kind of an inflection point just based on that 4-hour chart and the strong momentum shift that we're seeing in the 4-hour. So, all right, let me share this grid. So that's all I have for today, everybody. Remember that later today at the website is Corey's going to be delivering the larger time frame trade ideas and opportunities utilizing options. So please feel free to join us. If you're not a Traders Army member, come see what we're all about. Go to tradersarmy.com today. We would love to have you join us and see what it is that we do. Until tomorrow, everybody, I hope you guys have an amazing, profitable, happy, helpful, and blessed day. Talk to you soon. See ya.